Welcome to the Buy Box Experts podcast. We bring to light the unique opportunities brands face in today's e-commerce world.
Welcome to the Buy Box Experts podcast. This is Eric Stopper. Today's episode is brought to you by Buy Box Experts. Buy Box Experts takes ambitious brands and makes them unbeatable. We've got a team of consultants, and honestly, I know you're stressed, and I know you're in your car or wherever you listen to this, working out. Maybe you're at your desk. There's a lot of things that you need to learn about Amazon that are very, very difficult. And we want to be able to help. We've got a team of consultants. Reach out at the Buy Box Experts website. Click on the free analysis button. You'll be connected with me or a member of my team. We would love to just be a sounding board and to help you understand how you can improve your Amazon sales. Go to buyboxexperts.com. Click on the free analysis button. This episode marks the final episode of our 10-part series with the geniuses at Kenshoo. We have talked about how Amazon advertising has evolved and some of the limitations of the tools that Amazon provides to sellers. We've gone into great detail about how to position your brand on Amazon and how much advertising spend you need to do and what it takes to be a top-tier advertiser on the platform today. I wanted to tie everything together, so I brought on Martin-Gill, General Manager and Chief Strategy Officer at Kenshoo. He's been with Kenshoo for almost 9 years and was previously the global lead of search engine marketing and digital marketing strategy and planning at eBay. He has an MBA from Harvard, and for all intents and purposes, is absolutely an e-commerce expert. Will, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Now, there's a long history. You've been with the company for a while, so I'm really excited to talk to you about just what you've experienced and all the different markets that you've been able to traverse and get into. The first question that I want to ask is just like, talk to me about the evolution of Kenshoo and how it got into e-commerce advertising.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, Kenshoo was founded in 2006, and so this is our 14th year in operation. We started on the search side, really trying to help advertisers scale what they were doing on Google. I, at the time, was actually not at Kenshoo. I was at eBay, and I was, we were managing a huge program of tens of millions of keywords times 26 countries. So there was no way to do that without software. And so Kenshoo is actually one of the platforms that we use to help us do that in some markets. We then kind of evolved into social. The folks that went on to build Facebook's advertising business asked us to come along and see if we could help advertisers also scale up on the social side, and we built a pretty successful business there. And then in about 2016, maybe a little bit before then, we had kept in touch with the folks at Amazon through the years. They had done advertising for many, many years, but they were contemplating a couple of big changes to go self-serve, to focus on sponsored listings versus just doing kind of the display side of the house. And that, combined with the fact that Amazon as a platform had tremendous momentum, really felt like they were in a great position to start to reinvent the way brands were connecting to their customers through retailers. And so we ended up starting the conversations with them and being one of the first to launch as soon as they had their developed APIs on the brand side, especially on the vendor side, to be able to work.
Now, I'm really curious now that you have followed this evolution of e-commerce. You're looking at these big retailers as well, and you're helping them gain data insights to help them diversify their portfolio of channels that they sell on and the data that they're able to garner and use. I'm wondering, from your perspective, with all the focus on brand that Amazon has in recent years, even in recent months, with the addition of DSP, with the addition of these stores and advertised stores, what kind of evolution do you feel that Kenshoo is going to go through? How are you going to service at a brand level that will really change the game for Amazon sellers?
Yeah, I think it's going to be two-pronged, right? One is, as you're saying, the types of advertising that Amazon is going to make available is going to expand. In addition to all the advertising that they can put around the product and the search experience, they obviously have a number of media properties that they can also start to do everything from over-the-top and digital video advertising to everything else. So I do think that some of the same challenges that folks have had and opportunities in really scaling up their programs are going to present themselves there, and that we, in partnership with Amazon, are hopefully going to be in a great position to help folks with it. I think second is that what we saw in both search and social was an evolution in that our platforms were very focused early on, really in automation and in optimization, meaning we wanted to save people time in the way that they manage their programs. And then we wanted to bring our sophisticated bidding algorithms to the table. I think as more of those technologies become available to a broader set of folks, brands are looking for a competitive edge. Brands are looking for a way to really differentiate themselves. And I think data starts to become that competitive edge. The idea that you would start to bring e-commerce analytics and a number of other types of data that traditionally haven't been brought to making advertising decisions about how to set up your campaigns, where to invest, what to bid, et cetera. That connection of data points has a lot of opportunity. And we've gotten a lot of interest there, and we really beefed up our data science team, which was already pretty large, but through more folks and through partnerships, which we're excited about.
And one thing that I found that has just been absolutely fascinating is I've had the opportunity of interviewing a whole bunch of different software companies, and they all claim this or that AI, machine learning, which I've learned recently is totally bogus. Like I don't think a single advertising platform that I've looked at so far actually employs any remarkable form of machine learning. But that's a whole nother topic. All things the same. If a brand has pretty good brand marks, right? They've got good brand elements and good colors and a good way that they talk, good listings, right? And they have similar bags of money. And both of them have different advertising softwares. One of them being Kenshoo and then the other one having a different one. It seems like in 2020 and beyond, it's going to be a battle of the robots, right? The best bidding algorithm, the best automation tool is going to win the battle. And so what are the elements? Like what is the battlefield strategy for these robots, and what does it take to build the best one? How are we able to build our army better than all of the other softwares out there? Does it come down to the frequency of automation? Does it come down to what types of data are used as input? I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. The marketing has always come down to, is it an art or is it a science, right? Is it the Mad Men 60s coming up with clever ideas that then resonate with folks in terms of messaging, or is it, as you said, the battle of the robots? And I think that our answers is probably a hybrid combination of both, right? And that the human element in the equation is not going to go away anytime soon, because what we see time and time again, especially when you talk about algorithms that give you answers and help you make all kinds of decisions, they're really good at being almost like a dog on a bone. You tell them what objective to optimize to, and they're just going to go against that objective and do it at the cost of almost everything else. And even as you start to make those algorithms more sophisticated so that they can solve for multiple objectives at once, they still don't have the ability to see the bigger picture and solve for the bigger picture that a human does. And so I do think that, especially as brands look for competitive edge and to differentiate, you can't just turn it all into the algorithms. All of that said, clearly data feeding smart algorithms is going to be a huge weapon in that competitive battlefield. And one of the biggest differentiators that we see a lot of companies out there that try to be very smart about mining data and putting data together. And then we see a number of companies that just automate the heck out of things and just make the two. We think the feedback loop between those two is critical, because at the end of the day, a lot of the insights that get created these days and a lot of the business visualization are of what I would call that's interesting variety, which means you see the PowerPoint chart on a slide. Wow, I learned something today I never learned before. But then you don't know what to do with it, or maybe you do know what to do with it, but there's no way to kind of implement that quickly and do a test and then feed it back and see whether your original hypothesis of what it was actually works or not. And so I do think that these closed loop systems that are able to both generate really powerful insights and recommendations, but then can execute them and feed that back to the engine to begin with, should have an edge in the future.
That's interesting. So and I've had the opportunity to use the Kenshoo tool now for my own brands. And I have to say that, man, there's so much. I was going through the demo, like the guided demo, to understand how to use the tool in all of its entirety. And it seems like so much. I'm wondering, for these brands that want to start gaining the competitive edge, what are some of the things that you would encourage them to consider about their advertising? Like, what are the key metrics from the Kenshoo professional perspective, the bare minimum that these brands need to start looking at to identify that they have an advertising problem?
Yeah, we do have a fair amount of capability. I think we've invested a good amount over time to start to hide some of that capability for folks that are at different stages of evolving their program. And I don't think that you need to know what every set of things does in order to get a lot of benefit out of a platform like ours. And we have a very robust training organization that has been created with the explicit purpose of helping people step up their use out of a platform like ours. The biggest opportunity is first is starting to automate a lot of what they do, and really trying to get a lot of their program beyond having to do things manually from a campaign setup perspective, from a bidding perspective, and that type of thing. And then from a metric standpoint, I think the number one metric that most folks are driving to is this return on investment or return on ad spend metric, which is good, but in many cases doesn't do two things. One, it doesn't help you understand return at the margin, meaning one thing is the average return for your entire campaign, but the other question is, where is your next dollar best spent? And especially when you're trying to figure out, across campaigns or even across retailers, now that you're starting to have other options like Walmart come into the picture with their advertising program and others are lighting things up, the next question is, well, where should I invest? What? And the truth is that you need to focus on really trying to understand that marginal return so that how to shift your budget.
And forgive me, I haven't been able to explore this in depth, but does Kenshoo give that insight? Does it allow us to see the additional marginal return on each additional dollar in spend and give you insights as to which campaigns should have the most ad spend allocated to them?
Yeah, it's one of the capabilities that we have in some of our bidding optimization. I think the most basic form of bidding optimization just helps you put the best bids for specific keywords or ad placements. But the more advanced capability starts to create forecasts for you and really helps you understand the potential. Hey, and I used to have this problem at eBay all the time. I would get an extra $100,000, or in our case, $3 million towards the end of the quarter, and say, okay, go and spend this in the next 4 weeks in the best way possible. And you just, you at the moment, you got to figure out where those dollars are best spent at that point in time. And so at the time at eBay, I had the advantage of having a data analytics team that was over 10 people strong that would literally just take this and do all kinds of forecasts with seasonality with this and that. My dream in coming over to Kenshoo was actually taking that capability and saying, it can't be that you need a team of 10 people to help you develop sophisticated forecasting and, just ways to understand where your next dollar is best spent. There's got to be a way to automate this. And so we did. And we've brought that capability. We developed it for search originally, but obviously there's a lot of parallels on the Amazon side. And so we have brought that now and is available on the commerce side. It's one of the popular things that folks use.
Now, you have a wealth of data inputs coming to Kenshoo, and you service much more than Amazon. And I think that's really important for people to understand is like this ties everything together, right? Your Facebook and your Google. I noticed that you had a partnership just announced with Profitero around data intelligence. Tell me about this. What happened? What was the main focus, and what are you able to do now? How have you improved the tool with this partnership?
Yeah, we're very excited. The folks at Profitero are super sharp folks, and we had been talking to them for a while, and we're pretty impressed with the e-commerce analytics that they've put together. And they also were thinking about how some of the data and capabilities and insights that they put together could be applied to the advertising space. And so, they have price comparison data of how you're doing against your competition, assortment data and catalog data. They also bring, and they're very well known for some of the estimates and traffic that you get, because as we know, Amazon doesn't let you put your pixel on the Amazon.com website. So although you might get some impression data from your ads and from your placements and things like that, you're not necessarily going to have a clear picture of what the actual kind of traffic has been to your products, and then how that compares to other brands' traffics and things like that. And so these guys have worked with a whole network of their own partners plus their own technology to come up with very, very good estimates for everything from traffic volume to sales volume of yourself, of your competitors, plus other metrics that they bring in. And so, we think that has applicability to a lot of different decisions that you can make differently. Everything from which campaigns and which retailers you might want to invest in, to how you might set up your campaigns, to bidding. And so, some very concrete use cases came up. For example, if you find a product in Amazon that has very high conversion but low traffic, that might give you an opportunity to start to look at specific keywords to drive better traffic to the platforms. And so, we think it can make folks a lot smarter as we get deeper into what this data can be used for on the advertising side. And so we've got the beta open, and we're excited to already be working with several brands on there. And we'd encourage others to reach out if they're interested.
Yeah, congratulations. I think that the data intelligence that's going to become to that's going to arise from that additional, a weapon in the arsenal that you guys now have is going to be invaluable. Now, I wonder, kind of on that same note, these companies who are looking to use your tool and are shopping around and trying to understand, like, okay, which of these robots is going to give me the best feedback loop, is going to empower my team to make the best decisions. I think they often wonder, okay, is Amazon stealing money? Is it stealing traffic? Is it stealing exposure from the other parts of my business? Right? I run an ad on Google, and then, oh, hey, look, Amazon is the very top spot on the page, bidding and taking that spot. I wonder, are you seeing Amazon cannibalistic to Google search budgets? And, who are these buyers and where are the budgets coming from at these brands?
Yeah, we don't see it as very cannibalistic today. I think what the way I'd answer that question is in the short term, probably yes. In the long term, no. Meaning, as people are testing things out, they, instead of going and making the case to their CFO, they're just kind of taking money from elsewhere and throwing it into a new channel and seeing if it works or not. But as performance gets proven out and a proper case can be taken to the finance organization, proper additional budget gets released. And so I think especially, on the seller side, I think folks are still getting their heads fully wrapped around just how big this can get in terms of a driver of traffic and questions like incrementality. But so far things look pretty good to continue to invest incremental dollars without moving, especially from other less accountable channels,
right,
and less performance driven channels. And then on the brand side, everybody kind of thought that brands were more upper funnel type marketers that, just weren't as data driven as some of the sellers and some of the retailers were. But it turns out that a number of these brands are extremely numerically and statistically sophisticated organizations. The only thing they were missing was the data. And so as they're getting more and more data, the ability to make decisions, create evergreen programs that get, fed by this data is just going up, which, I think signals opportunity for the retailers, obviously, to grow their programs, but also for the ecosystem advertisers to get that much smarter.
In my conversations with, in our previous episodes, we touched on a few of these points of cannibalization and how to budget your advertising spend. It seems to me now that there are probably 5 different real Amazon products that people should be considering. And it's sponsored products, sponsored brands, DSP, video and search, and ASIN targeting, right? Kind of the core 5. And in this same breath about marginal dollars spent, there's a lot of these manufacturers and brands that it doesn't appear to me that they have any business even testing DSP and sponsored brands because they haven't even cracked the code on their own sponsored product campaigns. So how would you encourage these brands to start nibbling at these other products? Or should it just be 80% goes to what we know works, and we're just going to say that 20% goes to something that we know doesn't work, and we're going to work marginally on both of those different types of campaign styles? What are some of your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think crawl, walk, run is definitely the right approach with some of these new ad types. And, we often get asked what all the best practices are for each ad type. And, we've got a consulting arm that actually will do projects with brands and merchants and sellers to help them figure that out. But one of the first things we start off with is to make sure that folks' organic listings and things like eligibility for the buy box and other basic Amazon selling strategies are in the right place. And the organic things that you need to pay attention to can vary by type of advertising. And so part of what we encourage folks to spend time on is just get those basics right. And then once they do, I think it's just experimentation and testing, and really trying to develop a culture where you are launching these tests and seeing what happens. We in Amazon don't yet have very advanced capabilities to do things like geo-targeting, which would, in other channels like Google and Facebook have been at the core of how we do things like incrementality testing, where you do a test and control group. You take a set of geographies and you, for example, launch a new ad type, and you take another set of geographies and you don't launch it to really try to see what kind of movement that can have on your business. Okay, Amazon doesn't have yet all of the degrees of freedom to make that happen. That said, there are ways to do those tests pre and post, and there are ways to, over time, continue to ask Amazon and other retailers for those capabilities, specifically for the purpose of creating a testing and learning culture that we think is at the core of answering your question. And
that's the feedback loop that even independent of the data, right? That is the system that everybody needs inside of their business, is to be able to throw the line out and bring it back with data, to then throw the line out slightly different and just test and change over time. Is this whole digital native e-commerce world, I feel like some businesses are really open to that. It makes a lot of sense for them, and it's intuitive. Oh, cool. Let's test and come back. What would you say to those who might be behind that curve? What would you encourage them to look at? Is there a certain data point that is just really compelling to say, this is the way that you need to run your business as of right now? Put the past in the past. This is the way to do it. What would you encourage them to do? What would you encourage them to look at?
Yeah, it's it really is about the being able to understand what actions actually have impact. And, I think a lot of folks have thought in the past that was an exact science, and that maybe Other folks just either had the right skill set and some brilliant people inside and had just perfect technology platforms that solved the entire problem for them. Let me let you in on a little secret. Nobody has it completely figured out. And
That's fair.
No matter which competitors, a brand or a merchant are looking at that look particularly good to them, they just don't have it figured out. And I think the problem we all ran into is that we thought that there's a perfect answer to things like, well, what is the impact of my marketing? Or what was the exact impact of this technique or this ad that I ran? And in reality, we need to think of it more like the way we think about valuing stocks. If I ask you what the value of Apple stock is, you would point to the market and say, well, it's what the market says it is. It's, like hundreds or thousands of dollars. And, the answer is that's the market's best guess as to what Apple is worth on any given day. And they've arrived at that based on, some smart financial folks who did some cash flow modeling of what Apple looks like 10 years into the future and then discounted that into the present. Other people say, you know what, I'm just going to compare Apple to other companies and apply the same comparables. And that I'll tell you what Apple is worth that way. And the answer to what it's worth is it's triangulation between those different types of methods. And so coming back to your question, I think the culture of testing and the culture of really trying to understand the impact of your marketing has to be a triangulation by different tests that you do and by different methodologies that you are constantly tweaking that help you get answers that you'll need to then reconcile. And yeah, experts then can help you take a look at that data and help give an expert opinion and reconcile it. And that's where you guys as buy box experts come in. That's where we have some technology and capabilities as well. But it starts with a mentality that you just have to start working at it to get better at it, that there's no kind of magic solution out there.
I think that begs the question of what the future looks like, right? We now have the capability with Kenshoo to get an evolving dynamic snapshot of our business on all these different platforms, all these retail platforms. How do you see Kenshoo evolving in the next couple of years? And even just like data companies that are trying to be like Kenshoo, based on the market, based on how people are viewing advertising, based off of this wealth of availability and then, kind of the buzzword of big data. How do you see Kenshoo evolving?
I think that first, the growth on Amazon has been incredibly exciting, and they have been clear first movers in the space. eMarketer's estimates last year put Amazon at just under 40% in terms of market share. It's probably grown a little bit this year with everything going on with COVID. But still, you've got estimates out there that put Amazon's advertising business anywhere between $15 and $20 billion by next year. And if you think that that's only 40% of the market, that means that there's a $50 billion market in e-commerce advertising that is potentially out there. But Amazon's not done growing. I mean, they're still growing at healthy double-digit growth rates. So if we're not done there, you're really talking in e-commerce about a $50 to $100 billion set of money that is going to be destined there. And it's going to be bolstered to the whole cannibalization question, not just by digital budgets moving to these retailers. It's also, Morgan Stanley made an estimate that there's $178 billion in shopper marketing that gets deployed in the US every year. And that's things like promotions in stores and cardboard cutouts in stores and things like that. As folks figure out what the digital version of those is, I think there are entire new pools of money that come to the equation. So I think for the retailers that are not Amazon or Walmart, there's obviously a huge opportunity to come in and to be big. I mean, Amazon is big, 200 million users online. And then you realize that if for Walmart, you take online and offline, they have 300 million unique shoppers every year, and 140 million of those are online. So there are multiple of these retailers here and abroad that are of size and are going to be worth for the brands to pay attention to. And so if you're a brand then it does start to become a question of, okay, how do I make sure that for my category, whether I'm grocery or whether I'm, department store or whether I'm kind of general merchandise, how do I make sure that I'm in all of the right places? And we do think that platforms like ourselves are going to be very important, because most of these retailers are kind of creating private ecosystems that aren't fully compatible with each other. And so you need a common denominator between them that really makes it easier to both manage and then understand where the opportunity is. And then, we do think that this idea of these marketers being smarter and really being able to bring together, it shouldn't be marketing teams that are off on their own doing their own thing, and then sales teams that are off on their own doing their own thing. You need to bring the two goals together so that you're driving performance in a way that that makes more sense. And the teams are still very far apart. I wish technology was the only thing we had to get right in order for all of these teams to come together. But technology can be a start, and I wouldn't underestimate the value of a common language that then allows these teams to come together and really use each other's goals and data to make each other better.
Yeah, I think the data is like the first few breadcrumbs on the trail that leads both of these teams together. I operate in a sales position mostly, and I despair at how little marketing data I'm able to apply to my own sales process. You opened up a whole nother Pandora's box of topics that we can discuss. I'm sure that we're gonna have many more times like this to be able to get insight from the team at Kenshoo. You mentioned that you have a consulting service internal at Kenshoo. Of course, those who are listening, reach out to the BuyBox Experts team to help us evaluate. We'll evaluate your business. We'll look at it just in the Amazon kind of perspective and give you insights and data. But where can I point people? How do they find the consulting team? How do they get in touch with them at Kenshoo?
Yeah, our main business is not consulting. But I do think that, what we found is that we had a lot of advertisers that were asking specific questions. Like you said, how do I get started in a new ad type? Or how do I think about the different opportunities across retailers? Or how do I bring the organic work that I've been doing on my listings together with the paid work? And so our consulting has developed, especially the expertise around bringing technology solutions with our platform to some of those questions, and to help you think through all of that in the same place. So I think, ultimately we're pretty complementary of each other at BuyBox Experts in that way. And if there's interest out there, please reach out. We can send some contact information for you to put together. It's Megan Harbold is the person on our side that leads that team.
You listeners have heard from her. She's on our 5th episode. It really just absolutely one of the most impressive human beings that I've ever met. Will, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
To finish today's podcast, I want to share some final thoughts. For large brands who are seeking to wholesale product to a trusted Amazon reseller, we at BuyBox Experts are big fans of the team over at Pattern. They've helped hundreds of large brands to capitalize on the Amazon channel while also helping implement channel governance best practices that allow the brands to have consistency across all their sales channels. For more information, go to pattern.com and reach out to their team there, and they'll be able to help you. We hope to see you soon on the BuyBox Experts podcast.
Thanks for listening to the BuyBox Experts podcast. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web, and we'll see you next time.